In Chapter 3, we discussed syntax, the sentence patterns of language, and I know that sentence patterns can drive us crazy. As it says on your PowerPoint, any speaker of any language, doesn't have to be English, can produce a whole bunch of possible sentences. We can understand a whole bunch of possible sentences. And because of that, we cannot keep a specific meaning for a sentence as we can for a specific word. So the rule that we use for this to help store those sentences and understand them is syntax. So as it tells you, that is the part of grammar that pertains to a speaker's knowledge of sentences and the structure of those sentences. Now there's the cute little kid in the playpen. What's the big surprise? All the latest theories of linguistics say we're born with the innate capacity for generating sentences. And we've all heard babies babble. Maybe they know what they're saying. We may not understand it, but they still are putting something into expression. So, with English, we have certain rules that other languages do not necessarily follow. We have correct word order for a language, and this will differ from language to language. We normally, and notice I said normally, nothing is 100% in English grammar, we usually follow the subject-verb-object pattern. So the president nominated a new Supreme Court justice, rather timely sentence there, but believe me, I've had this up for a while. If we change that around and say President, the new Supreme Justice Court A nominated, we may sound vaguely familiar, as in we might sound like Yoda, but it won't make sense. This can also change the meaning. So if I verbalize, I mean what I say, well, is that the same as I say what I mean? So are they close? Are they similar? Are they dissimilar? Think about it. Cute little cartoon here. The sentences are grammatically correct. We have subjects, we have verbs, we have objects, we have linking verbs, we have adjectives, adverbs. We start off with one little walnut acorn saying, the sky is cold and the floor water is too hard to drink. Floor water? Think about it. It does make sense. The sky is cold. Well, the weather is cold. Too hard to drink. That's ice. But I have my hand coats and the space light is warm. I have my mittens and the sunshine. Space light is warm. Listen, the flappy planes are beeping into the stick towers. Birds are singing in the trees. Stick towers, kind of cute. The other acorn says, those are all the wrong words for those things. Maybe, but the things themselves are all right, so who cares? Does it matter? If we are not communicating and we're not clear, it might matter. So, our syntax rules will identify a subject, a direct object. We are more likely to see the sentence, your dog chased my cat, than the sentence, my cat chased your dog. It can happen, but more likely than not, the dog is going to be the one initiating the chasing, unless it happens to be the cat that a friend of mine in high school owned, and that cat weighed 35 pounds and was the neighborhood bully and beat up on the dogs. Still, the likely aspect. So we have other constraints that syntax will address. The boy found. Well, found what? It's not a complete idea. The boy found in the house. We still don't know. The boy found the ball. Now we're cooking, guys. Disa slept the baby sounds a little odd. Disa slept is okay. Disa slept soundly is okay. But slept the baby doesn't work for us. We have the sentence, Zach believes Robert to be a gentleman. Good for Robert. Zach believes to be a gentleman isn't going to work for us. Zach tries to be a gentleman will work for us, but Zach tries Robert to be a gentleman won't work. So our syntax rules governing subjects, verbs, and objects are pretty important to us. We also have word groups and how we put them together. So we have the sentence, the captain ordered the old men and women off the ship. So we've got two possibilities here, and this is where sentence diagramming comes in so handy. Is old modifying just men, or is old modifying men and women? So are we talking about the old men and the old women, or are we addressing the old men and women of any age? They all have to get off the ship. It can make a difference if you're 20 years old. With one meaning, you're off the ship. With the other meaning, you're going down with it. Sorry. So we're having our word groups formed here with old and men and women in there, and then this bracket and this bracket showing old men and women. This one just has old men, this one just has women. So our grouping is very important. We will be doing sentence trees. I really enjoy sentence diagramming better, but this is what your book does, and this is what we will do. So when we get into our sentence trees, we can break these down. Here is our and joining the old men grouped together with the women. Here old is attached onto the word group men and women. Pretty simple on this part. Just wait. So these trees show that there is structural ambiguity. And with ambiguity, we have problems understanding. And I do want to suggest that you watch old Burns and Allen videos on YouTube. George Burns and Gracie Allen. She was wonderful at ambiguous sentences, and her whole comedy routine was based on this. And we have some others. Here we have the catcher saying, "Watch out for this guy. He's a great fastball hitter." Okay, great fastball hitter. The pitcher interprets that as, "There's no way I've got a great fastball." Is that what the catcher meant? Probably not. So, grammaticality is not based on prior exposure. We don't have to have seen a sentence before. It's not based on meaningfulness, as we saw with the two little acorns walking through the forest, or stick figures if you just want to call them that. And it's not based on truthfulness. A sentence might be grammatically correct, but it doesn't mean it's accurate. So, we can have a sentence, the child found the puppy, and we have our determiner, the, child, noun, found is our verb, determiner, the, puppy, noun. And do we have internal structure? So our internal structure is broken down as we go with the brackets. We have our groups, and in grade school, high school, you would have referred to these as a noun phrase and a verb phrase. So your subject, your predicate, however you were taught, we have two basic parts. Here is our tree diagram showing this. So we have the child, our subject phrase. Here we have our little verb. What did our verb find? Well, what did our child find? The puppy. And A is modifying, determining puppy, just as the is. Then we encounter constituents and constituency test. So we have our natural groupings. So if we have a natural group, a standalone test, this is a constituent. I ask a question, "What did you find?" And the little boy answers, "A puppy." So that is a standalone group. if we can replace something with a pronoun, pronouns can replace constituents. Where did you find a puppy? We're going to replace a puppy with him. So we can replace by pronouns as well. You can also move a unit. So we have this lovely active voice sentence, and I really want students to use active voice more than passive voice. But we can move things to check. So a puppy. We're going to move it from the child found a puppy and put the importance on a puppy, subject, was found, passive voice verb, by the child. Now notice we have to add a linking verb, helping verb actually here, which makes your sentence longer, and we also add a preposition. So this sentence is definitely preferable. We also show through evidence that people perceive sentences in different ways. So if a sentence has at least one constituent structure, we'll go down to this. If a sentence has more than one constituent structure, then it is ambiguous and each constituent structure corresponds to a different meaning. So if we have different meanings, we got to work on something. We have syntactic categories, and that's a family of expressions. Language is just one big happy family. Sometimes they fight. That can substitute for one another without screwing things up in terms of grammar. So we can leave found a puppy, and we go from the child to a police officer to a neighbor. We can have the child as our basic and have a different verb direct object combination or just a verb. So the child found a puppy, ate the cake, slept. Sounds like that child had a good day. Then we have all the groups here known as a noun phrase. With a noun phrase, of course, you have to have a noun. You have maybe a determiner. The noun might be a proper name. The noun might have a stand-in with a pronoun. So we have different options. So we could say the child found a puppy. We could also say he found a puppy. On this one, we have verb phrases. Now with a verb phrase, you may also have a prepositional phrase, and these things will drive you crazy. If you were not taught your prepositions in high school, now is the time to learn them. There are 42 common prepositions, and basically you can recognize them by anywhere a rat can run. Everything works except of, for some reason. A rat can run above your ceiling. A rat can run below your desk. A rat can run toward you. A rat can run from you. A rat can run around you. You get the idea. You can also sing them in alphabetical order to the tune of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. So, the child found a puppy. We have a verb phrase. No prepositional phrase there, though. So we've got our phrasal categories: noun phrase, verb phrase, prepositional phrase, an adjective phrase, and an adverb phrase. So our nouns, notice happiness is not something concrete, but a state of mind, a state of being. It refers to a concept. Verbs, present tense, past tense, whatever. Prepositions, up, down, across. Now these always have to have objects. Up the staircase, down the staircase, across the across the floor. Okay? Adjectives tell about a noun. Adverbs modify a verb, another adverb, and adjectives. And you will notice that adverbs very frequently end in ly. Our auxiliary verbs, primarily those are your linking verbs, your helping verbs: shall, should, will, would, can, could, may, might, must, have, has, had, be, being, been. They help out verbs to form the different tenses. And our determiners are like pointing a laser pointer on something specific. Which cat? This cat. and we're laser pointing a particular cat. And I apologize, there is a train coming up, and I hope it does not overwhelm my voice on here. Now, our phrases have a head. So in the verb phrase, walks the pugs, well, what's the verb? Walk. That is, I said walks the pugs, walk. The verb is walk, so that's the head. The phrasal category that comes next to it and elaborates, that's the complement. So it completes the idea. So prepositional phrase, over the river, over what? The river, and that's a noun phrase. Then we have specifiers. Those are primarily our determiners, the, a, and the. Then we get into what you are so going to love with phrase structure trees, the X-bar schema. We'll get more into this later, but we have a certain phrase, we have a specifier, then we have the phrase itself, we have the head and the complement. So our phrase trees, we see how this is broken down. So we have our noun phrase here, the is our determiner, noun, child. Our sentence is consisting of the noun phrase and the verb phrase. The verb phrase breaks down to the verb with the bar over it as the noun here had. And then we go to the verb, which is the head, followed by the complement, the noun phrase with the determiner a, and then the puppy. We like the puppy. So, in a phrase structure tree, everything higher dominates. So the sentence is going to be at the top of a phrase tree. And then, as we go down, whatever is higher up is going to dominate what comes below. So our sentence is going to dominate both the noun phrase and the verb phrase. The noun phrase dominates the determiner and the noun. The verb phrase dominates the verb. The noun phrase consisting of the determiner and the noun. Then we have sisters. I told you these things are made up of families. Sisters are categories that are immediately dominated by the same note. They're in the same family. So guys, if you want to protest and say they should be called brothers, that's up to you. But in the previous sentence, the verb and the noun phrase are sentences. Now, some heads are going to require a certain type of complement and some won't. So as we saw before with the verb found, we can't just leave it. It requires something. Do you remember something called transitive and intransitive verbs? That's what we're dealing with. So found, we have to have something, so we have the ball. Alex put, we have to know what he put. Alex put the ball. Well, we still need to know more, so we have the prepositional phrase identifying where he put it. Now, sleep doesn't take a complement. Alex slept. There's nothing else to add as a complement. You might say Alex slept soundly, Alex slept for an hour, but you can't say Alex slept the ball. The noun belief, maybe. The belief in freedom of speech or proud of herself, these things, you might be proud of yourself. You might hold a certain belief and then you don't have to explain it. Or you might say he holds the belief in the freedom of speech. Optional. Then we go into C selection. Subcategorization refers to the information about what types of complements a head can take or must take. So remember, we're completing the idea of the head there. So the verbs also select subjects and complements based on semantic properties. So if we've got murder, we're basically going to need a human subject and an object. The beer murdered the lamp is not going to work. The beer drank the lamp is also not going to work. We can't murder a lamp. we can't have a beer drink a lamp. So the subject has to be animate. Beer is not animate, except maybe on Thursday night on campus. So if we're drinking something, it has to be liquid. You can't drink a lamp. So all of these things are coming into play. So for a sentence to be well-formed, you're following all these rules. The PS rules, phrase structure, the syntactic, the C selection, the semantic, the S selection. Everything has to match up correctly. And these are some of our phrase structure rules. So a sentence can be a noun phrase and a verb phrase. A noun phrase can be a determiner and a noun. A noun can simply be a noun. A verb phrase can simply be a verb, or a verb might be a verb followed by a noun phrase, and we go on. So all of these structural rules apply to grammar. So if we look at, and this is just a phrase, this is not a sentence, the majority of the Senate. So my main subject is majority, and that should have been a noun, sorry. Of the Senate. Okay, this is noun, remember that. Preposition, prepositions take objects. Noun phrase, determiner, the Senate, noun, and PP denotes our prepositional phrase. Now, with recursive rules, we have a phrasal category contained in itself. So recursive rules allow grammar to generate an infinite number of sentences. We can say all kinds of things. We can add all kinds of adjectives onto that boy. He can be kind-hearted, intelligent, handsome, thoughtful, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, for all we know. All these sentences are going to contain information about tense. Now, as you know, all sentences contain information about tense, and tense is going to mean not that you're really nervous or upset or your muscles are tense, but it's referring to the time period, okay, when something occurred. Present tense, past tense, future tense, past progressive, future perfect progressive. We have all kinds of tenses. So when we have something with a TP structure, we have tense markers. So we'll have a specifier, we'll have the head, and we'll have the complement. So what heads the sentence? Okay, the girl here is heading the sentence, so we have our noun phrase, the girl. We have the verb phrase, and we have tense denoted here, may. That's one of our auxiliary verbs. May what? She may cry. The child ate. Well, here we don't have the verb ate, but we have the tense marker for past tense. So this tells us it is the past tense of eat, which of course we know is ate. This one is interesting. We have structural ambiguities. As I said, watch a video or two on YouTube of George Burns and Gracie Allen. The boy saw the man with the telescope. So, either the boy used a telescope and he looked through it and he saw the man, or he just happened to see a man and the man possesses the telescope. So, because we have two meanings, we can have two different phrase structure trees. And here we have those. So, the boy used the telescope. The boy, and we've got our past tense note there, so used. The boy used a telescope to see the man. The man saw the man who had a telescope. And we get a little longer here because of this adjective clause, who had a telescope. Our modifiers, as I mentioned earlier, they often end in ly. They're going to tell us when something happens, how something happens, quickly, slowly. So completely, okay? Yesterday, when did it happen? How did it happen? Those will pop into there as adverbs. Now, notice on your placement of prepositions, the preposition, here we have at, has to have an object, and the object will follow it. Here we have a badly prepared tree. The farmer, okay, we're good, chases. Okay, what does he chase? The ducklings on the rainy days. Now, this is making us have rainy day ducklings. That's just not going to make sense. When is this farmer chasing ducks? Not on rainy days. Okay? The farmer chases. Now, the line goes over here to the prepositional phrase. So the prepositional phrase is telling us about when he chases the ducklings. So even though on the rainy days comes after the ducks, in terms of hierarchy on the sentence tree, it comes up here, higher. So I, noun, will, tense, hit the fly with the newspaper. The prepositional phrase goes over to the verb phrase. I'm going to use a newspaper to hit that fly. I will hit the fly. Now, the prepositional phrase with the newspaper is attached to the fly. That means the fly has the flipping newspaper, and what is he doing reading the newspaper? It's just not going to happen. We also have transformational analysis, where we have different competencies. We have a declarative sentence, and then we have a sentence that is basically asking a yes or no question. We just want confirmation. Is the boy sleeping? Yes. Could I say, yes, the boy is sleeping? Sure. But I can also answer yes. So the difference in meanings, we show this through different word orders. And with this, we have different structural differences that correspond to certain meanings. And that is primarily going to depend on where the auxiliary, remember that's a helping verb, occurs in the sentence. So the yes-no questions, we have a rule, just as we have a rule for the transformational process. So we move an auxiliary before the subject to create the surface structure. So are we going deep structure or surface structure? What are we doing? We have active to passive, and remember, I really want students to use active voice when they write. The cat chased the mouse is much more direct than the mouse was chased by the cat. Too many words. Puts the importance on the mouse and not who's actually doing the chasing. Have your subject perform the action. Now, with there was, there are, there is, there was, there were. Try to avoid those because the word there cannot be a subject. And you have to wait until after the linking verb to find your subject. And it confuses people sometimes. And it just puts off the subject. So here, changing that into a man was on the roof, and I would say a man was sitting on the roof or something like that to make it stronger. We can move prepositional phrases sometimes, and if you start a sentence, use a comma right after it. So the astronomer saw the quasar with the telescope. I can say with the telescope, move the prepositional phrase. The astronomer saw the quasar. It's still going to tell me how he saw it. Now, Which one of these two would make a stronger impression on you? Wild penguins attacked my sister. Oh my god, we can visualize. My sister was attacked by wild penguins. It's like she just sat there and let it happen. We put off the wild penguins and we weaken the verb and we add a prepositional phrase. You know, it's just not that strong. I could just say my sister was attacked and leave it at that. Never even mention the wild penguins. Go active, okay? The structural dependency of rules. We have all these rules, and the transformations are structure dependent. So they act on phrase structures without caring what words are in the structure. So, as we saw with those two little stick figure guys, it doesn't really matter on the words. We can move things. The move rule can be applied to any prepositional phrase as long as it is an adjunct, tells about the verb. The subject-verb agreement stretches across all structures between the subject and the verb. There may be 5 prepositional phrases, an adjective, an adverb, and a couple other things between the subject and the verb. Doesn't matter. Subject-verb agreement is dependent upon those 2 words. So here we've got our lines. Subject, the guy, seems. He seems. So I can have anything in the middle. Doesn't matter. Now, remember those questions you were taught years ago, reporting who, what, when, where, why, and how? So the WH question. The PS phrase structure rule generates a basic declarative word order. Max will chase what? The move shifts the word what to the beginning. What will Max chase? Or I'm sorry, what Max will chase. I was looking down too far. We also have what will Max chase. So I can say it in different ways. Max will chase what? What will Max chase? What Max will chase? Now that one doesn't sound as good. The universal grammar gives us a basic design for all languages. Now remember, all languages are going to have their own parameters, their own rules, and their own variations. So just bear that in mind. But all languages have structure that conform to a certain X-bar schema. The phrases will have specifiers, heads, and complements. All sentences are headed by T, and the languages seem to have movement rules. So languages may have different word orders. So in another language, the heads and the complement may be in different places, different word order, but you'll learn that if you learn a different language. The syntax of sign language also follows rules of universal grammar. Yes, there are auxiliaries, transformations such as topicalization, which move the direct object to the beginning of a sentence for emphasis, and the WH movement, the constraints on transformations. We have UG, universal grammar, present in signed language and spoken language. And this demonstrates to us that the human brain is designed to learn language and not just speech. We are not little parrots repeating words that we have been taught to mimic. We are learning a language. And that concludes Chapter 3. So hold on, and we will have Chapter 4 next.